This is the WP Wednesday podcast, episode 137. Website or social media? You decide. My name is Marv Dorner of Be Busy Consulting, and today we're going to talk about what you need, or if you need a website. The answer is yes. Or can get by with just a Facebook page, or a Twitter account, or an Instagram feed to manage your business, your organization, anything like that. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, so a little bit of promotional copy. Make sure if you need to speed up your WordPress site, just a few clicks with the most powerful caching plugin in the world, use WP Rocket. I use it on most of our Be Busy websites, and I can't recommend this plugin enough to optimize your WordPress site, even using the Divi theme, which I use, which has some built-in optimization. This thing does some amazing wonders to speed up your site. So to speed up your WordPress site, go to bebusy.com/rocket and check it out. This is an affiliate link, so Be Busy, and I guess that would be me. It does make a couple of bucks, and I appreciate the support. And this podcast is officially sponsored by Be Busy Consulting, me again. If you need any help with your current or future WordPress sites, SEO, or even social media, which we'll talk about here shortly, digital marketing, drop me a note over at bebusy.com. As always, I invite you to subscribe to the WP Wednesday podcast, this time using an app from newpodcastapps.com. Or if you have to, go to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player or virtual assistant, and leave us a review or topic suggestion on Twitter at BEBIZZY. Now, just a quick word on newpodcastapps.com. That's part of the Podcasting 2.0 pushed by Adam Curry and others. And these are apps that you can run. Most of them are kind of exclusive to either Android or to iOS. But they have a ton of new options that you're going to start seeing, hopefully, here in the next year or change, to your podcasting apps. And we're in the middle of launching another podcast and another website to kind of tell you a little bit more about that. But go to newpodcastapps.com and find out a little bit more about some of the other apps that you have at your disposal instead of using Apple Podcasts, which I absolutely hate, by the way. I've started using that a little bit and not a fan. I got off it almost immediately. Stitcher Radio is whatever it is. Spotify, not a huge Spotify user, and use some older podcast apps like Pocket Casts, and hopefully they're going to be moving into the 2.0 infrastructure, but you never know. So, newpodcastapps.com, or if you just got a question about your website, or maybe even help doing a podcast, head over to bebusy.com, and we'll talk. So on to today's topic. Over the years, I've had only a few potential clients decide not to do a website instead of just to go with a social media presence. So they just decided they don't need their website. They can do everything they need to do on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or wherever. So I'm not going to badmouth social media. I've been very involved with it, especially in the past, especially on Twitter. I've grown that to over 100,000 followers and have been there for many years. Haven't really gone beyond it because I haven't put a lot of effort in growing it. I've just kind of been maintaining what I have and being very involved with the folks that are following me there. But it's gotten me involved with several national brands like Verizon Wireless and Ford Motor Company and Yamaha Music, and there are others. I'm just not, they're not at top of mind right now, but it seems like social media took a turn 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe. And it was going to happen. It matured, right? You know, everybody was getting in the early 2000s. And, by the mid 2000s, late 2000s, anybody who was probably on Facebook and kind of being involved in everything. And then things started to change. The algorithms changed. the monitoring changed, the content changed, and instead of arguing over sports teams and mobile phone operating systems and whether a dress was blue or gold, tribes started to form along political lines. And lately they've kind of gone into the COVID line and masking lines and that sort of thing. And these tribes, however they popped up, have been mobilized and weaponized to cancel celebrities. They've ruined friendships and inevitably cost companies customers. Whether it was warranted or not. These I keep calling them tribes, but these groups of people or these political persuasions, or whether you've been vaccinated or not, or what you feel about the Russian Ukrainian war, there's always a black and white. It seems like there's no more of the gray. So you either have to be on one side or the other is kind of the way it's popped up. So that's unique to social media. You could, if you have a very political website or a very socially driven website, you could probably still claim that you are tribed, that there are tribal persuasions. If you're a very left-leaning organization, you probably put content up there and have a community based around that are very, very into that. If you're on the right side, it's the same thing. You attracted people to your side. You're distributing content that's very unique to that, and the people that follow it are either people who really, really like you, or really, really don't. They really, really hate you. Those are the only two people that follow you, or only two groups that follow you. But social media, that's very, very common. There's been tons of studies, and you can find a bunch of groups out there that will talk about if you look at somebody's Facebook group, just for an example, a good majority of them are of the same mind, the same political persuasion, the same things that they're interested in, the same people that they follow, the same brands. It's a lot of the same thing. What's happening is it's becoming, and it's worked its way into our society in general. It's forcing people to become very tribalized. So you're either for or against an issue. There's never a I don't care or agnostic. You can't really be that way, and which is sad because there's a lot of things I don't care about that a lot of people are very, very adamant about, and it's just not important to me. But what I'm going to do today, now that I've gotten on my soapbox a little bit, I'm going to talk about the pros of having social media and why you may want to be kind of sucked into that about being exclusive to just having your information on social media. Then I'm going to talk about the cons, and then I'm going to talk about how the website can help, how having a website in partnership with social media, or maybe exclusively from everything else, but for sure having a website can help you and should be more important than your social media. So let's talk a little bit about the pros. And like I said, I've been a very, very adamant, very involved social media user for many, many years. And there are many compelling reasons to lean on social media accounts to interact with your customers. And most are very, very good reasons. But a few are impressively negative. There's one thing to be just a little bit leaning negative, but there's a whole nother issue when you're talking, as negative as it can really potentially get if you really look at it. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But the pros, and there are going to be more than this. I'm touching on some of the high level stuff and things that are easy to explain. But you can reach a large number of subscribers very quickly with whatever message you're posting. So depending on your following, if you have, say for me, I have 100,000 people, I understand not all of them are real. There's a certain percentage that are going to be bots. There are a certain percentage that are not going to be active. There are a certain percentage that are just kind of there. But just using the numbers, depending on your following, you can reach out to dozens or hundreds or thousands or really potentially millions. Kim Kardashian reaches, I don't even know what her subscriber base is anymore, but it's probably north of 80 million, maybe 100 million. I don't know. The people that she can, whatever she says is going to be heard potentially by that many people. And that's virtually at once. I mean, if one of these high-end celebrities, political people, something like that, publishes something, it goes out to millions of people. And then it gets retweeted by those millions of people who are followed by other people who don't follow the initial person. And that just kind of explodes and mushrooms out to everybody in general. And then the media picks it up, and then it's on. Good or bad, it's then it could potentially explode to wherever. And then whatever they're selling, whatever they're communicating, can really take off. And so the odds, not the odds, the potential of reaching large number of people almost immediately is very possible. Very possible. You just have to have the right people and belong to the right groups and be potentially, I don't know, controversial enough if that's what you're selling. You just have to get the right people to start sharing and to be interested. But speaking of sharing, number 2 is sharing is incredibly easy. So content created on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok can be shared on other platforms with basically a simple click. I mean, if you push something to Facebook and you want to share it to any of the other ones, most of the time on all these platforms, there's an easy share button, and you can say share to Twitter, share to Instagram, and it'll just push it over. You'll have the option to type in something if you want, and it'll just broadcast it to whichever of these other platforms that you'd like. Now, posts can also be shared easily by other users. So like I said earlier, if you reach out to your group and they share it, then it reaches their group, and they share it and it reaches their group, and so on and so on. It can just mushroom out and explode out, ripple out from the center, reaching virtually an unlimited number of people. I was actually a part of a, I don't know if I want to get into the actual group, but I was leading a Twitter chat for an organization, a national group, and the numbers came in and it was mind blowing. Millions of people were involved or would have seen their accounts were kind of caught up in how this was shared and how this was broadcast. And it was a 1-hour chat, and it just took off. It was, we were broadcasting live from Chicago. It was just an amazing, amazing event. And to see the numbers or to hear the numbers of how that reached and how that got out to people was something to see. It was pretty special. It was pretty amazing when you think of, only, 300 million people, 350 million people in the U.S. And this was a pretty good chunk of that 300 million. I was pretty impressed. So the sharing, whether it's by your group or people inside of their group or their group, I mean, this thing can go forever if it's compelling, entertaining, informative, whatever the engaging content you put out there, it could potentially just take off. And again, posting to multiple platforms. So photos and text and some video can easily be shared on these systems at the same time using the proper tools. Or even if you have to go in one at a time, if you're only having accounts on 4 or 5 of them, you can get them uploaded in 10 minutes or whatever you can usually accommodate putting them in multiple places. So it's crazy. Number 4, the streams can be imported into your website. So all the social media platforms can pretty easily be displayed on your website using some embed code or plugins. And this provides new content to the website fairly easily. So it's a great way to put information on your website, which keeps it clean, keeps it updated, keeps it new. And, if you choose to have the website, this is a great way to do that. And number 5, and we're going to talk about why this is a con as well, but on a pro level, nearly instant interaction with your followers. So comments and chats and likes, they show up in your feed as soon as a visitor initiates the interaction. If somebody sends you a Twitter chat or direct message or a Facebook chat, you're going to get something that's going to pop up on your phone or your computer and say, hey, Mary has a question. And you can go interact with Mary and sell them things or give them information or start the process and instantly capture that hot lead, almost like that person walked into your store or office, or you get the idea. It's like that person came up to you, asked a question, asked about your services, and you can interact with them right there. Wonderful way to capture that hot lead. Now, I just gave you 5 pretty good arguments on why social media presence is a great way to interact and basically sell to your followers and possible customers. But now I want to talk to you about why relying strictly on social media isn't just a bad idea. I think it's a horrible idea. And why a website will help you solve some of these problems. And this is going to sound like a lot of me crying wolf. It's going to sound a lot like me as a web design person, really getting crazy and really getting telling you that you're nuts for being on social media. That's not the desired effect. There are some cases where the social media is going to work just fine. However, a vast majority of small businesses, large businesses, organizations still need a website. And here are some reasons. Number 1, social media sites can disappear in moments. You wouldn't think so, but do you remember MySpace? About Friendster, Vine, Google Plus, or for that matter, Google Wave, Google Buzz. Google's got a horrible track record on social media sites. Clubhouse is still around, but is it really? Have you listened to any content on Clubhouse in the last several months since Twitter Spaces fired up and virtually everybody else copied them? Building a following in a particular social media platform is slow and possibly money and resource intensive. If the platform dissolves or for some reason falls out of favor with the group that you're trying to reach, all the time, the money, and the resources are wasted. So you're starting to hear that a little bit on the Facebook side. For the first time, they've actually had fewer people using the site on an active daily or monthly or weekly, whatever they're tracking basis. It's actually gone down for one of the first times in its history. Not saying Twitter is going to disappear next week, but we may have seen the first crack in the dike. So be careful. If you're going to spend all this time and effort building all this community and interaction, make sure that's going to be there and that your users aren't just going to find something else to do next week or next month or next year, and you got to do it all over again. So they can disappear fairly quickly. They're also extremely sensitive to political and social pressure right now. So I'm gonna try to keep this as apolitical as possible, and might be tough, but sites like Facebook and Twitter have a track record to responding to media and social pressure, and that means they can either suppress or encourage content based on that pressure. So while it might be good that some content is muted, like right now from Russia in this wartime, what about the good content coming that we're missing? What about the content that may be valuable to an industry or products that are desired or maybe critical to businesses or lives? What happens to when the content or events coming from your state or city have been deemed to be punished in the algorithm, in the algo, pushing it down or even removing it from the feeds? What if your industry isn't popular for whatever reason or has some negative content? You know, the content could be seen by few or even no one based on the direction of the social media companies. And this, again, sounds like I'm crying wolf, but brands like Carhartt and Peloton and Starbucks and Disney and even Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head have all had their time in social media jail. Warranted or not. Doesn't matter. I'm not talking about that. But you may think whatever puts you in jail, quote unquote, was either warranted or not. Their marketing and executive teams struggled to get out of that and fix the problems with really various degrees of success. So the political and social pressure exerted by the users of this group can potentially put, and whether you're involved or not, it could put your business in that same lumped in group that whatever they're censoring at the moment, or maybe for good. So again, be careful, because if you're, let's use Dick's Sporting Goods for an example. That company sells everything, right? You can walk in there and you can buy running shoes, you can buy clothing, you can buy baseball glove, you can buy. I bought a kayak from there. Weightlifting, everything you could possibly do, fishing lures, fishing poles, hunting clothing. But a few years ago, they decided, for whatever reason, and it just could be they decided to do it because maybe their marketing research said it was the right idea. Maybe it was just a deal where they just decided it was the right thing to do. They stopped selling firearms. There are a lot of people who have decided they will never go to Dick's Sporting Goods because of that, and have been very vocal about that on social media. That's a decision that was made. They have to live with that, and they decided that they will live with it, and good for them. That's an awesome stance to take. They've just decided we're not giving in one way or the other. And you still walk into a Dick's Sporting Goods and you will not be able to buy a handgun, a shotgun, rifle for sports or for home protection or whatever. But there are other places that you can buy that. Dick's took a stance, and they lived with the social media fire that burned up around it. And they just decided that was it. They quit. That was the end of it. They withstood the storm. Is your business willing to sacrifice whatever percentage is going to be lost for whatever reason? Whether you're on social media, you put something up about how you support a particular political person. Maybe there's 20% of your people just not going to buy from them anymore. Or what if you say that, you went down to the rally for whatever reason and you marched in support of whatever, and 20% or whatever the percentage of the people look at that and go, oh man, I'm not going there again. So social media, although it has a very good, there's a need for social media. There's a need for the information that's there. On a business side, some of the stuff you shouldn't post on the business side. You should put it on your personal one. That's a whole different discussion. It's not going to be on your website. You're never going to put something on your website, or extremely rarely going to put something on your website like that. However, if you put it on your social media side, it gets pulled in, displayed on your site. All of a sudden, that website starts displaying what's on your social media feed. Now you're caught up in that potential washing machine of the social media. So I tried not to make that political. I think it probably came out as political to some degree. Hopefully I've insulated my thoughts one way or another. I think those of you who have been listening to the show long enough know kind of where I stand on a lot of things. Pretty right down the middle. I think everybody's full of crap, and everybody's out there to get you. So that's kind of my thoughts. So we'll move on. How about that? The next one is the algorithms. Nobody really knows exactly how social algorithms work. Basically, the more popular something is, the more eyes it gets. It shows to more people. So as people click or stop to view it on their scroll, it moves up in the algorithm on the platform. So more people see it, more people click, more people stop, et cetera, et cetera. It ends up going viral, right? If something really catches on, that's what viral means. It's just being seen by more people and liked by more people and shared by more people. So the algorithm picks it up and starts putting it in front of more people. It's the ultimate. It's the ultimate in capitalism. More people see it, more people want it. It gets made more. It gets presented to more people. It's the Beanie Babies of the, and those of you who are less than 30 years old don't even know what Beanie Babies are. But it's that thing. It's the thing that just gets shoved in front of everybody, right? It's just constantly there. But the good and the bad part is you can't make something go viral. It has to be the right content at the right time and get shown to the right people. And it's tougher than it sounds unless you're Kim Kardashian or have something really entertaining or can find another angle. It's going to be tough to make something go quote unquote viral. And I've had customers ask me that. I've been sitting in a meeting. This was 7-8 years ago when I worked for an advertising company. They basically came into the meeting and said, we want to make a viral video. And everybody in the office just kind of looked at them like that. You can make a video. You can't make it go viral. It's got to be entertaining. It's got to be shared by the right people. It's got to get caught. It's got to do everything it needs to do. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes something dumb, like a dude drinking, what the hell was that? Cranberry juice on a skateboard, singing a Stevie Nicks song, blows up, right? And just captures the entire world and the entire social media landscape, and it just explodes up, getting all the way to Stevie Nicks showing up on her feed, putting roller skates on, like she's going to go out and sing the song again. So it's uncontrollable, is what I'm trying to get at. And all it takes is something weird and unseen to bury your content. So again, not to sound political, just a couple days ago, a judge ruled it was okay for airlines and other companies not to enforce the mask mandates. Those of you listening to this at another time, this is April 2022. And Twitter and Facebook and other platforms lit up with photos and videos and other content for and against this decision. You know, it was either people being really happy and taking the masks off, and you could see them throwing them in the garbage cans, or it was people really, really hurt and scared and sitting on an airplane showing pictures of them still wearing their mask while this party raged on around them. And you could have had the best post of your life on social media, and nobody could have seen it. You could have had a product launch. You could have made a video that was the most compelling, the greatest message ever, and no one would have seen that because the algorithms were too busy picking up all the stuff online over the thing of the moment. And I talked about the blue gold dress. Those of you who were on social media, I don't know what that was, 4 or 5 years ago, the argument that raged for a week over whether a dress was basically, was it blue or was it gold? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. But it just swept through Twitter and Facebook like it was the greatest thing ever. So you're at the mercy of those algorithms. Whenever you're posting something on social media, you are at the mercy of that algorithm. If it doesn't deem that you're worthy and that your people aren't stopping and seeing it, which they may not even be presented it because there's too much other crap going by, it goes unseen. Nothing you can do about it. Wait for the wave to go by and then post it again, or pray it gets seen by somebody. But there's nothing you can do. And the last one, there are other things, but the last negative, remember the nearly instant interaction with visitors I talked about as a pro to social media? Not always a positive. Many of us have been drawn into a Twitter war or Facebook argument with a number of tweets and messages going back and forth between two or potentially even more parties, and this can draw out emotion, create a very public record of the dispute, and often allow others to become involved for one reason or another. It just seems to sweep up everybody who either backs one side or the other or teams up on one side or the other, and it's a scary situation. And the term keyboard warrior is there for a reason. It's real. It's easy to lob bombs from a distance if all you're going to get back is somebody arguing with you, or at the very, very worst, you're going to get blocked or unfollowed. That's the punishment you can distribute as a social media user. And our own social media tribes are often like-minded. So if you're the one arguing with somebody from your side, you're usually going to get only positive feedback, right? You were right. I can't believe that guy said what he did. I can't believe what they did with they did to you what they did. I can't believe a company would act like that. That's what your social media side's going to throw at you, and then you're not going to get a lot of negative because they're worried about you unfollowing them or potentially tearing a friendship, which very valid reason. I have a lot of people on my Facebook. Use Facebook for an example. I have 1,000 people, maybe, quote unquote friends. I don't agree politically or even socially with a fair number of them. And they probably don't agree with me, but we seem to get along okay. We're not getting in Facebook arguments. So if you do get in the Facebook argument, very rarely does somebody win. Very rarely. Very rarely does somebody convince the other person they're wrong. So it can escalate very, very quickly and get out of control. So if you're going to interact, and the only place you can interact with somebody is in a social media setting, tread lightly, man. I've seen so many responses to reviews. I've seen so many responsive to negative feedback, and man, you can really that's a fire that can get out of control extremely quickly. So interact at your own risk. It can be very valuable and do wonderful things, but the dark side of that is very, very dark. All right, so we talked about the why and why not, right? To strictly rely on your social media accounts for your business or organizations. Now I'm going to tell you why you need a website. And I'm not saying only a website. I'm not saying only a website, but I'm saying you need a website. And again, covering the top level, not digging down into really the nuts and bolts and SEO and a ton of other things that we can add to this, but to try to slow this down a little bit and not let it get out of control, I'm just going to touch on a few things. And the domain lends credibility. You ever try to find a website for a company or organization you saw on Facebook only to be redirected back to social media or just nothing? Having your own website and domain name proves you're real, much like a toll-free number did a decade ago. So having that website just proves that you're not a fly-by-night company. You're not trying to hide anything. It just adds a little credibility. An important one, though, is you can have a design based on your brand. And most of you running a business have spent some time on certain colors, certain imagery, certain fonts. Your website can be designed using all of this and not just a header image and a link color. Websites offer all sorts of design options. Number 3 is it's a central property to drive all the social media traffic. So if you want to disappear, let your potential customers stay in social media, scrolling past you right on to the next guy, right? By driving them off of Facebook or Twitter and to your website, now you have them in your arena. Now you can try to sell them things. You can try to get them to interact with your page. You can get them moving around and not be distracted and easily scrolling off to the next dance video. So it gives a central place for everything to come. Easily controlled conversations. We just talked about the positive and the negative of interacting with somebody. Forums can help capture the right messages from your visitors or even subdue negative or spammy comments. Research has been done that by asking for more information rather than just a single content bar, right? You just have a field where people type in whatever they want to say. If you're asking for a little bit more information, you're going to get forms that are only completed by people who are interested in your products or services, because people who are pissed off or just trolls that just want to throw bombs, they're not going to go through the hoops if you make them fill out a form that has 7, 8, 10 different fields. So the next one would be tracking where your content is coming from. And this is actually a pretty big deal. It's a good bet that virtually all your Twitter traffic is coming from Twitter, right? If you're inside Twitter, you're following links inside of Twitter, you're clicking on things inside of Twitter, the odds are you didn't get there from another website or another social media platform. You came there from Twitter. Same with TikTok and Facebook and everything else. But if you drive traffic from those sites to your website, simple looking at Google Analytics can reveal what social sites are pushing visitors to your site. And then you can determine whether you should be active in all, or you should be active in none, or you should just put all your eggs in one basket and be active in one. I still drive a lot of traffic from Twitter, and a lot of that has to do with this podcast, by the way. A large, probably 50% of the listens to this podcast don't come from the initial release and people that are subscribed to it. They come to people finding the podcast and finding this particular show note article. By the way, if you go to bebusy.com, you can find all the notes to this. They find this and they listen to the web or the podcast there. So almost 50%. But I don't have it living inside of YouTube, or I don't have it living inside of Facebook or any of these other spots. I have it on my website. And Google Analytics will tell me that what social sites are pushing visitors to the site, and then I can determine whether a platform is working or not, and whether I should be spending time interacting there or just kind of closing it up or letting it go. And the last one, again, we talked about this on the cons, is you can insulate your presence from social pressure. There's only a couple things that can take a website down. There's technical issues. Your domain registrar and your host. That are pretty much the three things. There's connectivity, which I kind of have in the whole technical, but your technical issues happen, and they're usually easily fixed with a responsive expert and maybe some backups, right? You have somebody that knows how to fix things, or you have some information backed up and you can just repush it. The site's back up. Happened with an SSL today. A customer called me and the site was down. There was a problem with their SSL. 20 minutes later, the site's back up. They called the expert. I fixed it. Moving on. Domain registrars like GoDaddy and Namecheap, which I recommend Namecheap all day, every day, very hesitant to respond to social and political pressure. They're just sort of a car dealer, a middle guy. They're there to sell you a domain, actually lease you a domain for a year or whatever you paid for, and then they just get out of the way. They're not worried if somebody's pissed off about what you have, and unless you're really, really inflammatory, the odds of getting taken down by a registrar are virtually none. You really got to have something that's on fire to start an issue there. Now, the host, if there's any one of these three that is technically kind of a weak spot, it's the host. Many websites and organizations have been canceled by their hosts. They've been told, we're not going to host you here. Take your site down. Just disappears. But there are usually provocative brands, and I'll throw a guy like Alex Jones, right? Probably the most provocative talk show host, shitster, whatever you want to call him, around. He keeps finding a place to host his website. So, and even, if we want to go another step, Donald Trump was canceled by Twitter, and he was canceled by virtually everybody in the social side of it, and even on the website. And he still has a way of getting that website up, and in fact launched, what's his social? Is it Parler? No. I can't remember what his social media site is right now. Shows you how much I care about that. But he found a way to get it done. The bottom line, you're going to keep a website up if you really want to spend some money and maybe be willing to go offshore. You're hosted in the Philippines or somewhere in Eastern Europe. They'll take just pretty much anything as long as you're not bad-mouthing them, right? So the odds of your site going down permanently for whatever political or social reason is close to zero. A little bit, might take a little work on your side, but you can get it up. The odds of you getting canceled on social media for a variety of reasons, or the algorithm pushing your information down, much, much higher. All right, so this went a little longer than I thought, but again, I'm not saying there's no value in having social media accounts for your business, but strictly relying on those accounts and not having a central website to drive all that traffic to is really limiting your capabilities and potentially putting your acquired community at risk. Having a newsletter, having people that come to your site a lot, that can't be taken away from you. They can unsubscribe. They can disappear at their own leisure. They could do that on social media as well. But if that site, if Facebook, for whatever reason, is pushing your information down, or whether they're not doing that, but they're piling stuff on top of it, which is the flavor of the day, that information is not getting out. If your newsletter is going to go out, as long as it can get through the spam filters and you're not putting anything crappy in there and people still want to read it, they're going to read it. It's valuable. Very, very valuable. And they can share it from there just like they can everywhere else. If you build your site right, you can do that. So a website, even a very simple site, provides a place for SEO to find you, for organic searches to find you, and a valid place for social media interests to land. And here's a sales pitch, right? We're 40 minutes into this thing. I'm going to try to sell you on something. If you need help with designing, developing, or hosting your website, contact me at BeBusy Consulting today. So either come to BeBusy.com, go to Twitter at BEBIZZY, talk to me there. Come through the Facebook page if you want. I'm just telling you why you shouldn't use Facebook or social media, but You can reach me on all these platforms. I would prefer you came to the website. Go to BeBusy.com, fill out the form, call me. The best social platform ever invented, the telephone. Just give me a call. We'll talk about it. We'll get you all set up. We'll figure out what you need. We'll tell you how big, how much money it's going to cost, how long it'll take, whether it's worth the effort or not. And once you hand that off to me, you can just sit back and relax and leave the technical stuff to us.
This has been a Be Busy Consulting production.